What's up, guys? So, in the Blitz tournament that I won, I played one more interesting game that I wanted to share with you. Many of you ask me, Maya, can you explain us and give us some variations of the King's Indian? King's Indian lately became one of my favorite openings with the black pieces against d4, and I have an amazing score with it. So, in tournament chess, I believe I won 6 games and made 3 draws. No, I made 7 wins and 3 draws. And in Blitz, I just crush on daily basis so many guys. In tonight's lecture, I just want to show you game from, I believe, 2nd or 4th round of that tournament. I played against a guy who's rated around 2100, and he went for the bayonet attack. And let me just show you what the bayonet attack is. So when they play d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, as you all know, this is nothing else but the King's Indian. And after they go with e4, you just play d6 because you're not supposed to give them full center with e5. But that line also exists if you play castle. Knight f3, that's the main line. And after castles, bishop e2, I went for e5. That's a typical and the classic King's Indian. And he has so many options here. He can play d5, which is called Petrosian variation. He can play bishop e3, very annoying one and highly theoretical. It's called Gligorich variation. They can go the most boring and dry one. It's exchanged line. You can immediately see how much I hate those type of things. They can also go with short castle, and basically short castle is just white's continuation into the main lines. So they just sink into more of like these main variations. I went for knight c6, and he went for d5, where I, of course, bring my knight back on e7. I just want to tell you one more thing before I carry on with this game. Usually computers and these even strongest engines lately, they have lots of problems. They always used to have lots of problems with King's Indian assessment of the games because engines somehow like space so much, and they always favor white's position. So for all of you who intend, for example, after this video to carry on and play King's Indian, I just want to tell you, don't look at so much at the engines, and don't pay attention on the engine assessments, because most of the times it's going to be 0.8 plus 1 or similar for white. You shouldn't be scared of that. My opponent went for b4. It's just one of the moves. The main one is knight e1. There is a line with bishop g5. Some Serbian guys like to do king h1, and that's what I teach my students as well. But this guy went for bayonet attack that was massively, exploited by simply fans and supporters of Kramnik. Kramnik won literally zillions of games with the white pieces on when he was on his top. And after b4, I just opted for a line that is not popular anymore. It's more like a Mar del Plata approach with the 98, where I just want to go with a classic break on the king side with f5. So what is so special about this one? I just want to go with f5, and that basically presents one of the crucial, or let's just say main highlight ideas of the King's Indian defense with the black pieces. Simply saying, kingside attack. He went for c5. I went for f5. He went for knight e2 and knight f6. And here I'd like to stop. Once again, that 98 move is not popular anymore. Not popular because of one very annoying line by white. I'm not going to show you now that. I just have to tell you and to give you like a piece of a great advice. Nakamura, certainly along with Fischer, Gligorich, neither these older guys, and nowadays Garry Kasparov, actually after that Kasparov, and nowadays Nakamura is all together with Rajabov. Those are two best King's Indian players. But specifically speaking, in this variation, Nakamura made 4 fantastic, no, I'm not talking about like good games. I'm not talking about like game. He won those games. Fantastic, spectacular, fascinating wins by Black against Anand, Kramnik, Belavsky, and Gelfand. Do you know what does it mean to make like 4 masterpieces with the black pieces in a line that is considered to be suspicious nowadays? And he made like 4 masterpieces against Anand, world champion, Kramnik, world champion, Gelfand, one of the best defenders in the world, and Belavsky, who was one of the top 10 players in the world. It's fantastic. And this just gives you like, as a King's Indian player on all kinds of levels, hope that you can play this opening even though it's suspicious on all levels. You just have to be great tactic. Here he went with a little bit surprising bishop f3 to control the center, but at the same time to keep an eye on any f4. If I move my knight, for example, on e8 to defend the pawn on d6, I'll show you that later, to go with the bishop g4. And that's a pretty dangerous idea for black players if they manage to somehow weaken, exchange, or simply take the light square bishop away from the game. Which game I was actually familiar with here, and I always expect my opponents to go for. The main move is f3, and when you look at the chess base, you're just going to realize that all these white players went for f3 in the past. I played so many games f4, knight c4. That's exactly the plan by whites. They want to go with a4, bishop a3, b5, and they just want to go after the d6 pawn. You go g5, classic King's Indian approach, a4, knight g6, bishop a3, and just before they play b5, you gotta play rook f7, classic King's Indian approach idea to control the 7th rank, to go with the bishop on f8, swapping off the bishops, going with a rook on g7, but at the same time to control the 7th rank after some rook c1, knight b5. This guy went for b5. I'm showing you a game, not my game. I'm showing you a game that is famous for this line. So d takes c5, you gotta take now because you can't hold the pressure on d6 any longer, and makes no sense to bring your knight back on e8 because you want to break with g4 at some point. D takes, bishop takes, and h5. So black is just preparing himself for the king side. a5, he just wants to break on the queen side with b6, g4, b6, and g3. And that's exactly the point of these lines. They gotta go with the king h1, and they gotta go with going back with the bishop and defending themselves. The thing is, they can never play h3, because if h3 happens, you always have time to capture, and after this, to go with either c takes or queen c8, in which case you threaten this pawn and want to take here and do some x-rays against the bishop on c5. That's winning. And they can't simply go with a king g2 because you have knight h4 and you're going to win this pawn and mate your opponent. So that's why they have to play king h1. You go knight h7, and nowadays this move is considered to be suspicious. But I'm about to show you one of the most attractive games ever played in the King's Indian. So after knight b5, black went for queen h4 and threatened mate. And this Grandmaster Yepeshin, who used to be 2600, like even 20 years ago, played bishop g1, and he didn't even think of the danger that he could face in this game. Grandmaster with black pieces was Cvitan, one of the best blitz players in the world at that time, and Croatian strong GM. And the guy came up with the bishop h3. So white just needs one more move. Rook e1 and bishop f1, and everything would be defended. But he probably thought that nothing could hit him bad in this position, because after rook e1, he just wants to go there. If bishop g2, what happened in this game? King takes g2, and he probably didn't see the way. Knight g5, he would play bishop f1, king h1, and nothing. But there we go, enticing. Queen h3, can you believe it? So if the king goes here, it's mate. And apart from this, when the guy captured, Cvitan gave check. After king g2 gave this one, and after king f1 came up with this mating net. When I saw this game, and I remember the game was played in Switzerland back to 1997, I couldn't believe my eyes. And also, Cvitan, the same year, he beat another top GM at that time, a Grandmaster Ljubomir Vtačnik from, at that time, Czechoslovakia. Two fantastic games, two amazing wins in the same fashion, with the same idea, with the bishop and the queen sack. And that's what I always go for in these positions. Anyways, this guy played bishop f3. I was a bit disappointed because that I couldn't go with these lines, but you know what? I just go with f4, and when the bishop is on f3, I believe it goes faster and smoother, this g5, g4. The guy went knight c4, and I played a6. Afterwards, I checked this, and I did have time to play g5. I saw that he would go with h3. I would go with knight g6, and I didn't see what should I do after knight b5. Now I know. Now I know. I could go first with a6, and if he captures b5, knight on c4 and knight on d6, both of these knights are hanging. And when he captures, I'm going to capture this one, and this one is fallen. That was the first trick. And second trick, I can defend on e8, but why would I defend if I can play e6? And I was so much afraid of this bishop g4, but it's not a big deal. You just kick this knight away. They go here. You just bring it here. You want to take by knight. They just exchange it. So now you threaten b5. You go with f3 and g4. And when they play queen d3, b5, knight a5, queen d7, and no one can stop both g4 and f3. Although, and unfortunately, I didn't go for this, but it's always good when you analyze your games, and that's why we analyze our games constantly, to keep on improving our stuff. I played and went for a6 to stop knight b5. He captured c takes d6 and pushed the pawn up to b5. He wants to go with bishop a3 and to go after the d6 pawn. And now you gotta show, let's just say, guts here, because you either are going to make a step back and to say, oof, this is difficult, d6 is becoming my weakness, I gotta defend myself, or you just have to go all in. And in King's Indian, usually you just have to go, because they're going to be the ones who are going to be more afraid, because your game is on the queen side. It's about the rook, bishop, pawns. Their game is about the king, and we just go for mate. That's what I like as a practical point of the King's Indian. Anyways, I went for g5, threatening g4. He played h3, and I went for knight g6. He played bishop a3. And here, I immediately saw what was I going to do, but I just wanted to check. Worst case scenario, I can play knight e8, and I can defend my position. I can also go with some knight h4 to take on f3, to push g4, and to go for the double-edged game. But here, once again, you can use the old trick in these lectures. So stop the video and try to find what would you do here. Find two moves. And if you stop the video and said, I would capture on b5, and then second exchange, then you're my guy. Actually, you're my hero, because that's what I did. This way, I just kind of release the pressure on the queen side, and now it's my turn on the king side. I got a bishop pair, I got a potentially dangerous pawns, I got these knights that are going to push g4 and the king side attack eventually, and I just want to go with, I just release the stress about the d6 pawn. So I went for the knight h4, and I want to take on f3 and push g4. He went for bishop h5. Of course, bishop g4 doesn't work, because I would just capture and play f3, and then I'm completely winning. So he played bishop h5, and I decided to take the pawn. It's always good when you attack and when you sacrifice some material and you get some material back. He went for knight b5, and here I had immediately f3, and after g3, queen d7, but I completely forgot about the hanging knight on b5. I first played queen d7, threatening this knight. He played a4, and I played that f3. Because if he captures by bishop, I saw the rook takes f3 and queen h3 with a mating pattern here. So he played bishop g4, I played queen d8. I'm threatening to take, and I'm threatening to take on g2. He captured, I'm threatening to take the knight. He has to take on d6, and I played queen d7. Once again, I'm threatening knight. He brought it back here, and of course, after f takes g2, queen h3, I threatened mate. He had to stop it and prevent it by knight, and I came up with this check. Hope that you enjoyed in this short presentation of the crushing the bayonet attack in a little bit old-fashioned but still great tactical style that Nakamura used to do. This was a relatively nice theoretical game, and I believe this is going to be helpful for the King's Indian players and those who like to attack. Thanks for watching.